So, good morning, or indeed good evening if you're tuning in from the homeland of the majority of these drivers. This is the Trackstars Touring Car Series, the first round of the 2020 season, about to unfold here at Blue Moon Speedway. And as you may have already seen, looking at the track map in your top right corner, it's not the infield as you may expect for these GT500 style cars. No, it is the oval. We are doing 156 laps, or just shy of 500 kilometers for the Blue Moon 500, the opening round of the Trackstars Touring Car Series. It's going to be a very interesting race indeed. We'll give you a rundown of the grid in just a moment. We'll have 2 formation laps before the racing begins in earnest. And certainly we're expecting some interesting racing here. I'm going to say this evening, I'm going to do my best to remember that this is a majority Australian room and event. Incidentally, for those of you who are tuning in from my own following, from those of you in the UK, including Blue Ukulele, thank you for joining me for this early stage of the broadcast. We will be running with kilometers an hour. Of course, that's the way things are in Australia, so we're sticking with the roots of the series here, despite my grating English accent. We do have one Englishman in the room, and he is, of course, Party Face. We'll run you through the participants and the grid order in just a few minutes. We will also let you know that this is the first of a 10-round season here, the race about to get underway. After Blue Moon 500, we go to Dragon Trail Seaside, and we'll surely have time to run you through the order of events in full as well. But here comes the race itself then. We have, again, 2 formation laps before we kick off in earnest. So 158 laps displayed on the graphics from Gran Turismo, but it is 156 laps of racing in actuality. A good group of cars then. We've got a lot of A and B rated drivers. Certainly a quality grid for this, the first round of the season. You can hear the buzzers getting ready, but this is going to be a sedate first lap of the race, and it will give us just a chance to run you through the order and the happenings in full. So let's start off with the grid, and with a 39.760, it is the man we see in the red, white and blue Nissan, Lurox 22, in the appropriately adorned 22 car, starting from pole position. Alongside on the front row we have the 19 car. This is CB Racing Chris in the first of 2 CB Racing Lexuses. That is the number 19 car, followed in third by the sister machine driven by Contagious 187. That's the 101 car, the CB Racing Lexus in third, alongside the first of the Hondas. So all 3 manufacturers of the modern GT500 cars in Gran Turismo Sport represented on the first 2 rows, courtesy of It's Racing on a 40.077. The number 1 car, the defending champ, in the 4th spot. N-Spud P666 in the Mashed Spuds Racing Lexus. He is 5th spot on this grid with a 40.178, just 500ths ahead of Sir Tyson 02. Sir Tyson 02 of Send It Racing should be there in 6th place according to my data. However, I see Evil Speedster in 6th. Whether or not that's going to be how they get off the line or not, that remains to be seen. But Sir Tyson on my provisional listings at least registered as 6th, but we'll see how that one weighs up. No question over who is in the 8th spot though. It's VIPR Deziets the Lexus in the John Player Lotus-esque coloured Lexus, starting in the 8th spot. 9th and 10th is Top Deck. Top Deck 101, who doesn't appear to have actually been able to take the start, so it looks like we're missing one car here. So no Top Deck. We do have Robbo Sport in 9th, Party Face in 10th, and Little Blacko in 11th, in what must be said is probably the most appropriate livery for the racing we're doing today. Lots of NASCAR-esque looks to that one. However, we're already 2 by 2, and the racing is about to get underway. Lurox with the, I guess, preferential inside line, heading towards the rolling start here. Cars tightly bunched up before we get ready to go racing. And there goes the power down, and it's a good start from our leader, Lurox. Not such a good start from second place, though. CB Racing Chris not getting the drive as they head towards turn 1 for the first time. The sparks fly. These low-slung GT500 cars will be battling hard over this 156-lap race distance. And we can already see one of the key factors of this race, the slipstream and the bump draft. CB Racing Chris electing to help rather than fight in the early stages of this race. It won't be won on the first lap, of course. The top 5 breaking away. Contagious 187 still ahead of It's Racing in the 4th spot. The bold number 1 livery there on the Honda NSX. And it is 2 Hondas, 2 Lexuses and a sole Nissan in the top 5 as they run across the line for the first time. Inside line for CB Racing Chris. Will he take the corner? Yes, he does. So the Lexus into the lead for the first time, and bouncing off the barriers slightly there by the looks of it is Lurox 22. Looks like the pair of Lexuses there, the twin cars from CB Racing, running line astern, now running first and second as Lurox gets moved down another slot. Of course, all very early going here in this 156 lapper. Tyre wear and the like is on, so there's going to be a lot of durability and tyre and fuel saving as factors over the course of this race distance. And there goes the top 5. Someone getting loose there. That was It's Racing, the defending champion. Having all kinds of issues there with the car. There's your early live timing. But look at this, nearly going 3 wide. It's down to 4th place there for Lurox. Lurox now down to 5th even, potentially, with Sir Tyson looking to the outside. Lap 3 of 156, and already 3 spots dropped for the guy that was on pole. Lurox 22 falling down the order for the time being, but this is of course a long game and we're very early in the proceedings. And it's now the champion, It's Racing, using the draft to his advantage there, and into the lead he goes. It's going to be a matter of switching position corner to corner if things stay like this for the duration of the race, and that is of course a huge question mark. We are going to see a lot of position changes. It's going to be he who leads out of the last corner who can maybe look in his rear mirror and still expect an overtake at the end of 156 laps. It's going to be down to the wire in all regards here. Here come the 2 blue Lexuses from CB Racing then, heading up towards the back of the defending champion and most winningest driver in the Trackstars Touring Car Series, It's Racing. It's Racing, of course, a real world oval racer. And certainly that will play into his hands here across the 500-kilometre race distance here at the Blue Moon Speedway. The tri-oval layout, unique. We do come back to Blue Moon, incidentally, for the 10th and final round of the season at the end of the year. However, that's a long way away, and it will be the infield version of the circuit. So this is the only taste of oval racing that we're getting in this, the 2020 season for Trackstars. Some debate as to whether there's a reset here, because one of the drivers has low power as it stands. Whether or not mercy is taken will remain to be seen. It's Racing running at the front of the order. It's N-Spud P66 who seemingly has an issue. Let's check his car out. There is the Lexus, some way back from most of the field, although Party Face runs behind in P11. in the rather fetching D2 livery, aping the DTM cars from Mercedes in the early 2000s. Top 5 still running as close as could possibly be. The sparks fly. It's racing into the barriers. Most of the drivers into the barriers on that particular lap. Some bump drafting going on further behind as well, but it's racing ahead. Contagious falling through the order. CB Racing Chris siding through into second place now and looking to the outside as they run through turn 2 here at the Blue Moon Speedway Tri-Oval. Holds the outside line round turn 3 and now completing another lap. We're about to go on to what is effectively lap 8 of 156, discounting the 2 formation laps, and look at that. The action is getting closer and closer. We've now brought in a 6th contestant in this leading battle. It's Little Blacko, who of course started from the back, didn't have a great qualification session, but seemingly that oval livery, or oval inspired livery, is a indicator of exactly what what Little Blacko is made of. Seems to be a bit of an oval specialist, judging by how he's carved through the order, stayed out of trouble, and now sits in this battle for the top 6. And every time we look, it's change, and change again. We've got cars dropping from the order. It seems as though, perhaps on the Trackstars Discord, they have finally agreed to a issue there, or rather a reset there, for the car that had low power. So I think they're going to be logging their positions and restarting on the agreed upon lap there. Everyone there confirming their positions as of the moment everyone started to pull back out. I don't have access to the audio from the party chat. However, it does sound as though we are going to have a reset of some description, some ilk. We've got some writing in the game chat as well, so we'll see what is going on. We have a red flag, so the cars that are still out there on circuit, and it looks as though it is only one, has now withdrawn, so we are back to a force majeure situation here. Some drivers re-entering the room. Hopefully everyone will get underway with everything as it should be this time. But an early drama then. Laps now reduced to 148 to reflect the change there. So 8 laps were in the books, so it looks as though we're going to go straight off into a start. So just a momentary pause before we get racing. It was looking rather exciting in those early stages, and confirmed there by It's Racing that we have a safety car restart on the cards here at Blue Moon. The 3.2 kilometre layout here. So everybody getting ready for the restart, and it will be this car, the number 1, the defending champion, the Honda NSX, of course, mid-engined, unlike the rest of the cars on the grid. And it is that Honda that will be starting from the pole position, apropos, of course, given the number on the top of the car. So final checks for everyone before we go racing. And there is confirmation that the final will start in just a few moments. If you are tuning in incidentally, thank you so much for doing so. I see we've had a few new subscribers as well, some in the field and some just tuning in to watch, I believe. But to those of you who are tuning in, thank you for doing so. So let's try that again then. The grid order remains the same, but there will be a reshuffle here, I believe, to get everyone back into the positions required. Oh, jump out. Looks as though things are still not quite ready to go here. So be a proper disruption to some of these drivers' rhythms. I once witnessed a race here in the UK at a real circuit, and there were 3 red flags across a, I believe, 1-hour race, and it does really impact the drivers. Just very difficult to get embedded into the car and the race and the conditions when we have these pauses. So, question marks the order of the day at the moment. We were missing someone, or missing a couple of people by the looks of it. So when we do return to racing, it will be 148 laps of Blue Moon Bay, and we are about to return to racing action. Again, I anticipate, based on my information, that we're going to get another formation lap before we get to racing again. There is also a safety car process in play here, in case that does come up, of course, during the race. Essentially, it's much like real-life NASCAR competition, in that if there is a major incident that costs a substantial amount of time to its, let's say, participants, then everything will reset effectively. And that is a car going at cruising speed, so we will have this formation lap. Standard weaving of the tyres, warming of the tyres for It's Racing, who was in the lead before the red flag. Of course, all of the cars in this lobby built to the current specification regs in GT500 competition. The top class of the Super GT series, of course. All of these cars powered by 2-litre 4-cylinder engines. Pack quite the punch. Of course, the regulations, also referred to as Class 1, can also be seen in DTM racing. Yet to see any of those cars in the Gran Turismo Sport lineup, but potentially that could change in time. We have gone back to green flag racing, then it is lap 2 of what is now a shortened 148 laps of racing. Of course, the original race distance, 156. It was a great restart for It's Racing. Running at the head of the order. And there is the Honda with the number 1 leading the first lap then, and not quite clear of the slipstream, but had a very easy first lap. The top 5 is again breaking away. Not quite so much luck this time from Little Blacko, who's fallen back a little bit into 6th to the clutches of RoboSport 17 and some of the other drivers further back in this little battle. But let's go back to the front, because there is Contagious 187 again slipstreaming as they head towards turn 2, the fastest of the 3 corners, looking to the outside line. And we also have to consider CB Racing Chris, who may be looking for a slipstream off either or of the cars ahead. Top 3 starting to break away. It's looking a little more spread than it was earlier on, but one little mistake, one little error, 1 inch too wide and into the barrier, and all of the advantage the top 3 have built will erode away. There is the number 1 car running again to the inside line, closer to the apron than the Lexus alongside it. Contagious 187 dipping back down into the slipstream of the Honda. Quite high drag cars these, lots of aerodynamic devices, very advanced designs for GT cars. GT in the loosest possible term, effectively raw prototype cars, and Contagious to the inside and into the lead as the sparks fly. They run through the first corner once again. It's Racing holding his own on the outside though. And we see there the second of the CB Racing cars ducking behind its teammate, so some teamwork evident here. They have every right to do so. If the pictures at the end of the race can see a 1-2 line astern between Contagious and Chris, that would of course be ideal for the team. It's Racing a very close third place, and of course our former pole sitter Lurox running in the fourth spot. A big gap back then to Little Blacko, and Sir Tyson down to 7th. He's fallen off in the last lap or so as well in the Send It Racing Honda. We see there some of the other stragglers a little further back, but at the moment it's all about the two dark blue and black Lexuses. Rather beating the competition, black and blue at the moment. The 101 car off Contagious 187 leading the way at the moment. And there is our top four again. Currently single file at the moment. Not seen too much side by side since this race was restarted. But we'll see how that evolves as the race goes on then. The top four coming past the start-finish stripe for yet another lap then, the 7th lap of green flag running. It's now effectively a 148 lap race as to what was 156 laps of distance, so it's all change and it's not all been plain sailing so far. But for the CB Racing outfit, things are looking good for the time being, but not by much, as we can see there. That Honda looming large in the third position. Almost got into the back of CB Racing Chris there, and almost looking for a temptation of 3 wide. Instead manages to get between the two blue Lexuses there. And the leading Nissan of Lurox 22 on the attack in 4th place. Breaking away from the rest of the field in 5th, 6th and 7th, Robosport, Little Blacko and Sir Tyson. 3 very quick drivers. We'll see how their progress continues. Flashing of the lights there from Robbo. I think Little Blacko gave him a tap into turn 1. I believe that might have been the reaction to said tap. N-Spud P666 running in the 8th spot from Partyface, Evil Speedster and Viper Dezites in 11th spot. Those are our top 4 again then, and it is back to a CB Racing 1-2, and they do go side by side into turn 1 this time. Will they all stay out of the barriers? It's a double 2 wide situation on this lap, and that's much harder to handle in these high downforce cars, and we see there how it can be a problem when they go too wide. We saw Contagious 187 into the barriers there. A long way to go though, 10 laps in, 138 to go. There's that battle for 5th. Now these guys need to work together more than they need to battle together, I believe. Sir Tyson has moved his way up to 5th. You will see that, the cars switching positions so everyone can make appropriate use of their tow. But they want to try and close in on this top 4, and at the moment it's Racing leading the way. CB Racing Chris in the 2nd spot from Contagious and Lurox. It's Racing again picking the inside line. That seems to be a habit for the NSX racer. Again, no stranger to ovals, not high-speed ovals quite like this, in cars quite like this, of course, but a regular on the dirt oval scene in his homeland. And those are the top 4 running into turn 1 once again. Turn 1, the slowest of the 3 turns. Essentially extremely high speed banked hairpin more than anything. A slightly more open version of what we have at the Lago Maggiore Grand Prix circuit here on Gran Turismo Sport. Shades of Pocono and the Lausitz Ring in the shape of this particular circuit, among a fairly extensive history of tri-ovals in this type of racing. Lurox to the front of the order and to the outside in turn 1. Makes it stick with a good line there. The sparks fly as ever, but it is Lurox 22 in the GTR, heading the way for the time being. Back to the starting position for that car, of course. It's racing, holding off the 2 CB Lexuses in 3rd and 4th for the time being. That's the critical word. We mentioned, of course, that this is the only oval running of the year here in the Trackstars Touring Car Series, as it's racing. Moves to the inside once again. Will he make that stick? It looks as if he will. He does indeed. It's racing through into the lead once more. Lurox looking for an immediate reply, and the 2 blue and black Lexuses will no doubt be making a play themselves as well. The top 4 still on their own island from 5th, 6th and 7th. Still Robosport, Sir Tyson and Little Blacko in their own little getaway pack there in 5th, 6th and 7th. N-Spud and Partyface running 8th and 9th for the time being from Evil Speedster, and Viper Deseitz a little way back in 11th for the time being. Lap traffic may end up being a factor here. Bump drafting a factor there for Lurox, and it's racing as they run into turn 1. I think there might be an element of temporary alliances coming in here. We've got a permanent alliance in 3rd and 4th. That, of course, being the CB Racing Lexuses. So perhaps the 2 red, white and blue cars from Honda and Nissan, respectively, will have to form something of a coalition to try and remain in control of this race in the early going, but we will see. Racing drivers get along until you're asked them to drive race cars. Tends to be the rule. So let's see how that unfolds over the duration of this one. Lap 16 of 148 then. And there they go, sliding off into the barriers once again. Contagious and CB Racing Chris running line astern in 3rd and 4th. Lurox drifting to the outside there. That's left an opening, at least for Contagious 187, you'd have to suggest. But no, Lurox managing to hold on to the 2nd place, and now with the outside line heading into turn 1. Line astern with its racing. Side by side, I should say. And looks as though Lurox did get the best of that run. It's racing again, hugging the inside section of the circuit. Not gone as far as the yellow line yet this morning, or this evening I should say, but certainly running quite deep. Pit stop strategy remains to be seen, but we will, I believe, see at least 2 stops, if not a couple, maybe 3, but I think should be a 2-stop race. It will depend on the tyre wear though. We'll get a clearer picture as the drivers make their first pit stops, but the other factor to consider, of course, is that there are safety cars in play here if there is an incident that requires one, and that could well be an X factor in terms of the pit strategies as well. It's been clean racing thus far then, with 16 laps in the books, and it is Lurox again looking to the inside, looking towards the lead and taking the lead, but Contagious with a better run out of the 3rd and final corner. Contagious into the lead. It's chop and change at every single lap, every single corner here. Very great racing between these 4 at the moment. You see them getting slightly loose on the entry into turn 1. Following on from this event here today, we will be off to Dragon Trail Seaside for the Dragon Trail 200 kilometre event. Bathurst follows for a sprint race. Another 200 kilometres at the Tokyo Expressway for round 4. Brands Hatch Sprint is round 5. I assume that's a GP circuit. Monza, Red Bull Ring, St. Croix, Spa, and back here to Blue Moon for the Infield A circuit. The 10 rounds of the season. The calendar running through till the end, or rather the beginning of June, the last race taking place on June 7th. There is Lurox 22 at the head of the order. Slightly bigger gaps forming now between the top 4. Still very close further back though, so Tyson and Little Blacko looking to be doing a little bit of bump drafting there. The 74 car in what I'd suggest is a rather NASCAR-esque get-up. There they go, you can hear those high revving 2-litre motors shooting past. And there is Sir Tyson in the 5th spot. So another little bit of chopping and changing there, and that will continue to happen as the race goes on. More chopping and changing out front as well, with It's Racing at the head of the order. No doubt some of these drivers still playing their cards for the time being. CB Racing Chris has been hanging tough in 4th place for a good few laps here. I think he, in particular, might just be waiting for dramas to unfold ahead. Which you definitely can't fault. A smart strategy by the looks of it from the CB Racing driver. Grinding the side of the car against the wall there was Contagious 187. He'll probably get a bump now from his teammate Chris as they head down towards turn 3 once again. Sir Tyson with the colour scheme of the 1980s, at least in tribute. The McLarens, even the likes of Formula 3000 cars, BMS Scuderia Italia also running with the Marlboro stickering at various points. Certainly one of the more iconic liveries in motor racing. And the NSX wearing it well in the 5th position for the time being. Classic Nissan colours, of course, on Lurox there in 2nd place. .22 in the gamer tag and 22 on the side of the car then. We're 23 laps into the restarted race, so 31 laps completed in total of what was originally 156. But for the benefit of It's Racing there with the tail out a little bit, got unsteady, and that's allowed Lurox back into the lead. It's getting very close, very hard fought here at the front of the order. I think maybe both of the CB Racing Lexuses may have thought better of it at this point. Well, when I started that sentence I thought that was true, but by the time I finished it, we're heading into turn 3, and it did look as though the Lexuses were getting a little closer. However, I do believe that the CB Racing cars, at least CB Racing Chris, are starting to hang back here, because it's starting to look highly combustible here between It's Racing and Lurox. They're trading positions, they're trading a little bit of paint, more often than with the first corner wall than each other, admittedly, but they both look to be pushing hard. There are the top 4 going around turn 2. 25 laps completed, or 24 laps of green flag running completed then, since we had to restart the race due to a technical issue for N-Spud. Getting quite close to the point of traffic as well. I think maybe within the next 10 laps, if it stays in green flag conditions, we might see some traffic playing a role. It's from Lurox, Contagious, and CB Racing Chris. Lurox again tucked under the rear wing of the Honda NSX in the lead of the race. Looks to the outside this time at turn 3. And now to the inside as they head towards the first corner. As the tyres start to wear, they also have to be careful of losing grip into that first corner and shooting themselves and their competitors into the tyre barriers. It all has to be managed here. Tyre wear and fuel wear is on just 1x in this room, so it won't be that heavy. I think maybe if we do go fully green, it might be a one stop, but we will see. It's Racing now demoted down to 4th place over the course of that lap, with the two RCFs ahead. The Nissan GTR now leading the way. Sir Tyson, Little Blacko and Robbo Sport not really managing to make any ground up on the top 4. If anything, the top 4 I think has got away slightly over the last several laps. But if we do end up with another pause in the race, I dare suggest that these guys at least have the pace to hang with the top 4. We'll see whether that has a chance to be proven as the day wears on. Party Face and N-Spud having a battle all to themselves on their own private island, UFC Dana White style. Party Face and N-Spud 8th and 9th for the time being in the Nissan and the Lexus. Evil Speedster with a very lonely race at the moment in 10th. And then Viper Diseats in 11th spot, rounding out the order for now. Here are the top 4 again. Order hasn't changed, but look at this. To the inside goes one of the Lexuses, to the outside goes the other. 3 wide into turn 3. But Lurox manages to hold on there, off onto the yellow and almost onto the apron there. The car on the inside, that was very hairy stuff indeed. But everyone survives for now. But again, as the grip goes down, as the tyres start to wear out, we could see less and less of those mistakes, or indeed those moves, going unpunished. It looks as though the top 4 might be starting to split here. Lurox and Contagious with a little bit of a cushion, a couple of car lengths over CB Racing Chris, but that is only 0.3 of a second, so still very much in the slipstream, CB Racing Chris and its racing. 3.6 seconds between the top 4 and Little Blacko in 5th. Sir Tyson seems to be dropping Robosport from behind him as well, so the 7th place GTR seems to be falling off the pack just a little bit. No such issues in this great battle for 8th though. Back to the battle for the lead, and is still Lurox, taking a slightly defensive line there going through the second corner. He clearly wants to run at the front for as long as he can at the moment. To the outside there, by the looks of it, goes Contagious and CB Racing Chris, but corner by corner, everyone trying to find a way through, trying to find a way around. Side by side into turn 1, Contagious looking to the inside. Some little lag spikes here or there, making it difficult to predict exactly what the cars are doing as they go through turn 1. But it is Lurox 22 who heads the way, continues to head the way, as we listen to these 4-cylinder engines blast around the 3.2 kilometre layout here at Blue Moon. Past the building they go on lap 32 of green flag action. After a brief red flag, race distance was originally 156, but a red flag owing to technical issues for N-Spud has seen the on-screen lap count descend to 148. So Lurox still leading the way. The Nissan has been out front now for several laps. It's racing though with a great run off turn 1 to the inside for turn 2, and the lead by the end of turn 2 by the looks of it. Yes indeed, but almost going 3 wide there. Contagious running out of space, making contact with the barriers. And it will be moments like that the likes of Little Blacko in 5th will be keeping a very close eye on, because the gap has gone down, down, down over the last couple of moments to within 3 seconds for the first time in a little while. And they'll be hoping that these 4 trip themselves up. So top 2 currently for at least a few more seconds. Both of the Lexuses from the CB Racing camp were biding their time a little bit ago, have since gone on the offensive again, and for the moment at least it has paid off. Now in an ideal situation, Chris and Contagious will be looking to break away from it and Lurox, but I think both of those drivers in 3rd and 4th place are wily competitors that won't let that happen. They'll remain in the slipstream over battling each other if that's what it takes. It's Racing has rejoined the 2 cars at the head of the order. Sparks flying again as they run through the 3rd and final corner. These are such low-slung beasts, these GT500 cars. Perhaps the radiator grills come off the road cars, but that really is about it. And maybe the LED lights borrowed from the road cars as well, but that aside, it's very much a bespoke racing car. GT500 category found its roots in the 90s GT1 and GT2 categories, but have since spiraled and evolved into the beasts we see today. Greater aero freedom, and of course a tyre war in real life. That isn't an issue that we have to worry about in this series, but one of the most advanced forms of motorsport in the world, not one that visits ovals particularly often. There is a little bit of oval history in the annals of Super GT racing. We might get to that a little later on. It looks like this top 4 has just cleaned up its act slightly over the last couple of laps. Whether or not they've collectively realised that the secondary peloton, if you will, in 5th through 7th is just starting to reel them in. It's down to 2.3 seconds now, so indeed the gap has continued to go down. Little Blacko leading Sir Tyson and Robbo. And it does look as though he's leading them towards that battle for the lead. And it does look as though the other cars are being complacent. There's our 11th place car, Viper, or VIPR, Dezits, I should say. It's VIP Racing. Dezits. Just letting the others through. Not had the best race so far and is now a lap down on the full top 7. There are the top 4 again. It's something of a pain train here among the leading contestants. Round oval turn 2 they go then. Of course, 2 infield configurations are to be had here at Blue Moon, and the longer of the 2 will be the host of the season finale in the Track Stars Touring Car Series later in the year. But that will feel like a long way away for all of these drivers. It's a long way till the flag. Over 100 laps before we see the checkered and receive the champagne at the end of this one. Contagious 187, the leading car for now. From the teammate of CB Racing, that of course being Chris in 2nd place. The 2 identical liveries on the pair of Lexus RCFs. The RCF since replaced by the LC500 in real life, which has now in turn been superseded by the Toyota Supra. Toyota representing Super GT, representing itself in Super GT for the first time since 2006, which was of course the last year for the old Toyota Supra. There goes It's Racing looking to the inside. Moving with confidence into the lead of the race past both of the Lexus cars. All three manufacturers represented within the top four then. We said that on the grid, of course, and that has remained the case ever since. And it is the same four participants. The top four on the grid, still the top four on the road for the now, but in a different order. In fact, currently in reverse order. And it is our defending champion, It's Racing, at the head of the field. Again, taking a slightly defensive inside line through all of these bank turns. And we are just in that phase of the race where things start to calm down a little bit. The drivers are in this for the long haul. And a circuit like this, very little room to play with the fuel mix. I don't think we'll see anyone dropping down to a leaner fuel setting unless they've got a lot of slipstream guaranteed. Perhaps Lurox could get away with moving it up to 2 or 3 if he wanted to. Contagious to the outside then. We're now over 50 laps into the 156 lap full distance. Just 148 counted on the screen courtesy of the issues a little earlier on. Cars hitting over 300k in the slipstream on that main straight here at Blue Moon. And unless the lap has gone terribly wrong, they will never drop below 200 kilometers an hour here at the Blue Moon Speedway. It's a high-speed race, there is no doubt about that. Effectively 180 mile an hour or 300 kilometer an hour game of chess. Contagious to the inside and to the lead as we head through turn 1 again. Will It's Racing hold the outside line? Backs out of it for the time being. Again, plenty of time yet. Any heroic decisions will come later on, if they come at all, of course. More traffic up ahead. Will that play a role in this battle? Potentially we'll see that lapped car go down onto the apron and make itself scarce now. Looks like it's still involved in things for now. It's Racing will be hoping it doesn't break too early. It does break very early, but that... Oh, there has been some contact there, a little bit of touching, and indeed it's split the top 4, so the car in 10th place, Evil Speedster 85, leaving his mark on the battle there by splitting the top 4, now splitting 3rd and 4th. Speedster doesn't seem so keen to get out of the way. Certainly a lot more cooperation from the earlier back marker, Zeitz. More traffic to contend with as well in the not too distant future, and that's a battle as well, but it'll be a few laps before we get up to that. For now then, It's Racing and Contagious with a slight gap over Lurox, but the top 4 seems to be drawing together once again after the slight bit of back marker interference. CB Racing Chris just about still within range of slipstream at the moment and gets a decent run through the first corner. So it's number 1 from number 101 from 22 at the moment. Top 4 again, line astern. And now 5th, 6th and 7th have also dispatched that back marker in 10th spot. So Little Blacko still controlling things in the 5th spot. The gap to CB Racing Chris in 4th is still about 2.3 seconds. So stagnant relative to when we last looked at that particular battle. Top 4 again have changed places, and there are the first pit stops. Both of the CB Racing cars in at the end of lap number 50. The tyre changes ongoing, the fuel stop now. So tyres and fuel for both of those cars. Now, which one will come out first, Contagious or CB Racing Chris? It was CB in first, but it's CB out second. Contagious 187 up ahead, but the two sister cars arriving in pit lane at the same time. That would support a two-stop strategy. Of course, that is all if they do stay in the green flag conditions. There goes the Lurox 22 Nissan. I think that was tyres only for Lurox. We saw the tyres going on and then it went straight off. I don't think there was any fuel given to the car there. So clearly Lurox 22 confident in the car's fuel mileage for the time being. So we now have a situation here for It's Racing, because yes, his car is still going strong, but he is being reeled in by Little Blacko, Sir Tyson and Robbo Sport, primarily because they still have drafting partners and It's Racing doesn't. He's effectively the sitting duck at the moment. The Cartel Equipment Hire backed number 1 Honda NSX. Will he make the stop this time round? Will any of the cars behind make the stop this time round? Perhaps It's is playing a longer game here. Perhaps he's going for a one stop. But as you could see in the background of that last shot, the first of the pit stop runners in 5th, Lurox 22, is not far back. But Lurox, we believe, didn't take any fuel. That was tyres only. The fact that he's 12 seconds clear of Contagious and CB Racing rather corroborates that theory. So this is breathing room effectively now for CB Racing's pair of drivers. Contagious and Chris can run line astern, stay out of each other's way and push forward. Lurox 22 currently in 5th place, obviously going a different way with strategy, electing not to refuel. We'll see whether that pays dividends, of course, over the course of this race. There is our 2nd and 3rd place car, and look how much closer they are now to It's Racing. It's a three-way battle for the lead. Little Blacko in the 2nd spot and now challenging It's Racing for the lead, so it's a full way, or a full three-way battle now between the two Hondas and the solitary Nissan. So It's has fallen into the clutches of Blacko and Sir Tyson. Blacko scraping the barriers there, and that's cost him a lot of time lost there. I think Blacko and Tyson were having issues. among themselves there just a little bit, and that's put It's Racing back into a decent position for now. As we've already seen, it won't be long before he's back into the clutches unless he makes a pit stop. But again, if he was going to make a stop, I think it would have happened by now, at least for a two-stopper. I think this is going to be a one-stop strategy from It's Racing. But time will tell. At the moment, it isn't doing bad on pace. Got some lap traffic up ahead. That looks to be the battle for... Well, in fact, no, that's 9th and 11th place. So we've got one car being lapped for the second time. That's the gold and black Lexus. And then the 9th place Party Face, also about to go a lap down in the D2, the metallic silver GTR. A little bit of contact there between the two of them, but nothing that will get anyone too bent out of shape, I don't think. Robbo Sports has come into the pit lane. A refuel definitely for that car. And looking at that fuel gauge, it was at 29 litres, so I'd think that maybe it was a refuel for Lurox, but a shorter one. But if he comes in again shortly, we will of course know the full story on that. Fastest lap of the race so far is with It's Racing, a 39.678. Our quickest lap of the day so far. Lap traffic getting involved in the battle for second at the moment. So very briefly a three-way battle for the lead, but Little Blacko and It's Tyson with a little bit of coming together at turn 1, lost them a couple of seconds. It's been all green flag running so far, short of the red flag for connectivity issues, but no safety cars, no significant incidents yet. Tyson there getting a little squirrely. I think maybe those rear tyres are starting to cry enough. We saw a car go spearing off there, did I? I think Dezitz there just got a bit loose coming out of turn 1. Makes things easy for Lurox, who's closing in 4th spot. Lurox, if that is a car with less fuel in it, and I do believe it might be, the lightness of the car is starting to pay dividends, and of course the fresher tyres. But it is still this number 1 car, the Cartel Equipment Hire Honda NSX, at the head of the order. Initially raced in Japan as the NSX GT concept, of course, before the production car was unveiled. Oh, and a little bit of contact with the barrier there again for Little Blacko. Blacko and Tyson have again reeled in our championship winner from last year. 74 car looking to the inside. Another car into pit lane. It's Evil Speedster in for the first stop, and will be taking fuel in the 88 GTR. None of the top 3 biting the bullet and making a pit stop yet. Will it be around lap 175 when we see a stop happen? Did see Party Face pulling in a little further back. So not many cars left that haven't made that first stop yet. But here are the 3 most important ones. Blacko and Tyson now directly behind our race leader, It's Racing. He's not using "it's" with a Z to be cool like your average middle school maths teacher. That's the latter part of his last name, just in case you were concerned. Little Blacko bump drafting and slipstreaming here. See the subtle Super GT decals on the front, a nod to the origin of the car. Lurox is now a little more distant in 4th position, 3.8 seconds, but we'll see whether or not that changes. It will only take one slip up ahead for Lurox to be a factor, and of course, having already stopped, that's much fresher rubber. Contagious and CB Racing Chris haven't made the progress that you'd perhaps anticipate so far. In fact, RoboSport has come out directly behind them after his pit stop, so we've got a three-way battle here between the two Lexuses and the Nissan. Perhaps Robbo again not filling the car as much, if at all, whereas we saw a fairly long fueling for CB Chris and Contagious. Evil Speedster there coming under some traffic issues further back in the order. Things looking fairly controlled out front as we rapidly approach lap number 70 for It's Racing. But a lot of time for things to evolve and change. Definitely going to be a one-stop race unless there are dramas, I would suggest, for It's Racing, Little Blacko and Sir Tyson. They run through turn 1 for the 67th lap, the 66th consecutive green flag lap, because of course lap 1 was a pace lap. It's Racing, Little Blacko and Sir Tyson are top 3. Running around the 3rd and final corner of this tri-oval once again. Did of course mention a little earlier in the broadcast that these style of cars not necessarily typically terribly far removed from the old style of GT500 cars. They're slightly different mechanically and aerodynamically in terms of what they can do these days. Locked into a 2-litre 4-cylinder engine and a slightly more sane aero package to reduce costs somewhat. But we have seen cars like this on an oval before. A 2004 exhibition race was held at what I believe at the time was called the Auto Club Speedway in California. It was a non-season end to the 2004 calendar for Super GT teams, GT500 and GT300, a showcase event for what was then the Japanese GT Championship before it was rebranded to Super GT for 2005. Of course, in that particular event they ran the road course version of the Speedway, or the Roval as some would say. So not running a full banked circuit like we have here. Of course, if you want to go further into the annals of history, Fuji Speedway was once a oval circuit or a banked circuit. And Twin Ring Motegi, while obviously the oval circuit is separated from the road course, and we've not seen racing on the oval from the Super GT cars. That is, of course, the modern-day take on the Japanese oval circuit facility. Though that has seen little use since the damages and effects of the 2011 earthquakes in Japan. The home nation drivers here, the Australians, of course. A little bit of oval racing heritage beyond the dirt style racing that It's Racing in the lead does partake in. There's also the Calder Park Thunderdome that held the Australian NASCAR Series for many seasons. An enterprise funded ultimately unsuccessfully by Bob Jane. But oval racing, not entirely unfamiliar territory for the Aussie market. We've got Lurox 22 back onto this battle for the lead then, so it's a four-way pack now. In the top four positions of the order. Has scythed his way back to the races, as it were. It's Honda, from Nissan in the top four, and we've got four cars, all peeling off into pit lane. 0 litres of fuel left for Sir Tyson. Tyson was really running it to its very brink there. And Lurox did indeed short fuel, or rather didn't refuel at the last stop, down to 8 litres, just went for fresh tyres. Out they go. It's Racing looks to have rejoined with the cars that were running 5th through 7th. And it is indeed the pair of CB Racing Lexuses that are now in the lead of the race. Everyone, I believe, has now made a pit stop, and it is Contagious 187 from CB Racing Chris. They made their pit stop over 20 laps ago now. And they have come out ahead, but not by much, over It's Racing, which of course, that Honda is now a fresher car. Robosport, though, perhaps the biggest benefactor of the first portion of the race, in 4th and now a part of the leading battle. Robosport 17, the biggest mover up so far. Lurox running on his own island a bit in 5th. That's not ideal for him. He'll fall back into the clutches of Blacko and Tyson. Then he's got to hope for compliance from the pair in 6th and 7th. Of course, the question is, on lap 75 of 148, can It's Racing now run to the end? It was the end of 73 when they all came into the pits. So by my maths, or rather it was the end of 72, I should say. You double that to get to 144, so I would suggest It's Racing is going to have to make a second stop, but I would also suggest that It's Racing will know he has to make a second stop. There was a little bit of excess fuel, some 7 or 8 litres from the 100, which maybe could have been enough to do 4 laps, but I'm not... It would have been just. So maybe it can run to the end. It's going to be a question mark nonetheless. We know, just based on how early they pitted, that Contagious and CB Racing are going to have to make another pit stop. The question will be, is It's Racing going to have to do the same? Of course, it could indeed just decide to follow in CB Racing's pair of Lexuses when they make another stop. That is, of course, assuming that the pair of cars come in as a unit once more. Contagious, Chris, and It's Racing are top 3 from Robosport and Lurox, who have now come together somewhat. I predicted that Lurox would end up in a pack with Little Blacko and Sir Tyson, but they've actually fallen off the back. So will the pair of GTRs now be able to work together and try and catch back up to the top 3? And behind Little Blacko and Sir Tyson, it's a better part of a lap now to end Spud in 8th place. Big gaps then for the rest of the field. Partyface, Evil Speedster and Disease, all with not the best of races thus far. And there is Contagious 187 at the head of the order. I'd say that it's certainly whittled down to 7 cars for the lead battle as it stands. If there is a safety car situation, they can get a lap back though. And that will be another factor for these drivers to consider. They'll want to stay clean while fighting each other to ensure that back markers can't unlap themselves, therefore creating more competition in the field. Contagious 187 then, currently with a couple of car lengths over CB Racing, Chris. It's Racing ducked down beneath the rear spoiler of the RCF. And we've got a retirement there. Viper Disease has decided to call it a day. So we're down to 10. We can see 7 of them, the top 7, just in shot briefly there on the main straight. So it could go a number of ways yet, this. But the CB Racing team are definitely the ones in the prime position for the time being. The pair of Lexuses holding strong in the top 2 right now, but I think that It's Racing just kind of reading the newspaper, biding his time, waiting for the opportunity to strike. And like a snake in the grass, that Honda is just waiting to pick its moment. And it is currently that number 1 car doing the stalking. We've got some traffic up ahead that they'll have to contend with. It looks as though it's not an on-track battle, but it is 2 cars running line astern, and that could be potentially hazardous for the cars in the head of the order. There goes that top 3. Contagious 187, CB Racing, Chris, and It's Racing. An all-Australian top 3, indeed, an all-Australian top 8. The only interloper being Partyface in 9th, the British driver in the D2 Nissan. Sparks flying once again as they come out of the final corner, now on to lap 84. Of course, numbers 83 and 84 having a significance to the Toyota group, of which Lexus is a part. 83 and 84, the numbers of the Red Bull Toyotas in NASCAR competition in the 2000s, late 2000s into the early 2010s. And while, of course, Red Bull has since pulled out of oval competition for the most part, it is still very much a big part of Toyota's plans, still continuing on in the NASCAR Cup Series and the Xfinity Series. Of course, in the Xfinity Series now running a rather unique Supra. Partyface receiving some British support as the lone British Isles driver in the order. Into the traffic we go then, and Contagious 187, the first one to reach the interlopers. And he'll be hoping to get a clean run through turn 1 rather than getting swept up in the mess of the car in 8th. N-Spud holds the outside line, does a good job there by the looks of it. Of course, there are some challenges in this race that you wouldn't get in an actual oval, or rather a few more obstacles than you would get in an actual oval race in real life. One of them, of course, being no spotter. Admittedly, spotters usually come handy in pack racing. We've not seen too much pack racing so far, but the drivers have a little more to manage, need a little more awareness potentially than some NASCAR drivers would. CB Racing Chris to the inside of the car being lapped, and N-Spud making it relatively easy without costing himself too much time. Contagious with a few tenths now over CB Racing Chris and It's Racing. Rapidly approaching the 88th lap of the race. Feels like an opportunity to shout out Dale Jr., Dale Earnhardt Jr., former pilot of the 88 car in NASCAR Sprint Cup Series competition, of course making his IndyCar debut virtually just yesterday and managing to eke a podium out of it. Very impressive stuff indeed. And while that was maybe a fish out of water experience for Dale, it's probably a fish out of water experience that we're witnessing here for these GT500 cars, and certainly for at least some of these drivers who won't be running ovals as often as they do road courses. But clearly the learning curve has been steep but fortuitous for some. And again, It's Racing is an oval racer by trade in that alternate universe we call the real world, so he'll know his way around banked corners. Dezit's writing in the chat on the stream, 3 laps down, hence he gave up, and that's rather an understandable decision. Once you end up out of the slipstream and on your own in a race like this, it can be hard to recover. On to lap 90 we go then, and it is still the CB Racing Lexuses holding strong from the It's Racing driven Honda NSX. Lurox and Robbo are losing time to the top 3, so the GTR contingent not yet able to find the collaborative pace to chase that 3-car battle. Robbo to the inside as they head through turn 3 of 3. They are switching, trying to make the use of the slipstream to catch up. They've also got to worry about what's going on behind them, of course, and this is what's going on behind them. Little Blacko and Sir Tyson in 6th and 7th, the Nissan 74 car from the number 2 Honda. And if you are tuning into this stream, you may not have yet seen the tragic news coming in across social media. That being that the legendary Sir Sterling Moss has passed away at the age of 90 years old. Sir Sterling, of course, with famous victories at many Formula One Grand Prix, including Monaco. And the driver who was racing as recently as the early part of the 2010s at a Le Mans 24-hour support race. Pulled out of public life a few years ago and has now tragically passed away at the age of 90 years old. Lap 94 of the race, and is Contagious 187 heading the order here in the Blue Moon 500-kilometre race. 156 laps were on the books, and it will of course be 156 laps of racing action. However, after just 8 laps, NSPUD P666 reported a lack of power in the car. And it was decided unanimously among the drivers that racing would stop to allow that issue to be rectified. Contagious 187 and CB Racing Chris running 1, 2, 3 at the moment. Contagious 187, CB Racing Chris and It's Racing are top 3, but at the moment NSPUD is holding on to the pack in 8th spot. He's got some gap between himself and 7th place. It's as much as 30 seconds, but if he can hold on to the top 3, then fair play to him. It might benefit him later on in the race. Robbo Sports and Lurox running side by side down the back straight as they head towards the second corner. And it is Lurox at the head of the order for the time being. Robbo to the inside there. They seem to be still working together nicely, but it's just not benefiting them. The gap is now out to 8 seconds, so it keeps going up. They are, however, retaining a gap over Little Blacko and Sir Tyson by the looks of it. So even though things remain somewhat stagnant in this battle for 4th through 7th, this top 3 are breaking away. And I think that at the moment it is again another case of force majeure among these 3, or I suppose 4 cars, all running in line, in order, capitalising on the slipstream, and just making that gap continue to extend. They will have seen that it's going out 10th by 10th, lap by lap, over Lurox and Robbo. And I think all 3 of these drivers know it's best for now to keep building that gap so they can be unchallenged and maybe have a free pit stop towards the end of the race. Speaking of pit stops, it was 50 laps in where we saw Contagious and CB Racing Chris simultaneously dive to pit road. Will they do the same thing 50 laps later on the 100th lap of the race? We don't have to wait long to find out. It's Racing, they're getting sideways again in the mid-engined NSX, but holding it well. NSPUD running 8th and living dangerously. If he does accidentally tag the back of It's Racing or whomever is ahead of him at the time as a back marker, he would face some wrath and some questioning for that. But so long as he stays out of trouble, he is doing something that is perfectly legal and something that will benefit him in keeping with this top 3. Contagious, Chris, It's are top 3, split by less than 0.4 of a second as they run down the back straight. Here's 4th and 5th, Robbo Sport and Lurox. Again, it's gone out another second to 9, so the top 3 continue to extend that gap. Little Blacko and Sir Tyson continuing to run 6th and 7th as well, from NSPUD in at the 8th place. And in comes Contagious, CB Racing Chris, and It's Racing. So It's Racing has followed them in. I was wondering if the Honda NSX would join the pair of cars from CB Racing on the apron, and he has. Lurox has also come in. Lurox, I think, again, is not fueled there by the looks of it. Either that, or It's Racing is fueled for longer than the two Lexuses. It does look as though that is the more likely scenario, but either way, with Contagious 3.8 seconds off the lead and Lurox 7.4 off the lead, it still suggests that this GTR has been fueled lighter, if fueled at all, because it was 8 seconds back just a lap ago. RoboSport has also come into pit lane, as has Little Blacko. And that does put Contagious almost immediately back into the lead. Sir Tyson has been dispatched to second. So we're in another pit cycle, potentially the last pit cycle of the race here. It is indeed proving to be a two-stopper for most, although I'd think that maybe it could end up being a three-stopper for Lurox 22. So Tyson yet to make that pit stop in second spot, but he'll no doubt drop down the order again in just a few moments. There goes CB Racing Chris up the inside of the NSX. Of course, Contagious will be quite happy with this situation. If Tyson is going to act as the cork in the bottle and hang up Chris and the others, then that's only going to benefit Contagious 187 and hinder the rest. And while Chris and Contagious have been running as a team unit, certainly throughout this race so far, I think either of them would welcome the opportunity to break away. But of course, Sir Tyson also has the right to attack, and he might well do so here as they run into turn one. Was very close to the back of the leader, Contagious 187, as they ran through the banked, as I said before, effectively a banked hairpin. Oh, and off there goes Sir Tyson. We saw him snap into the outside wall at turn 3, and that's cost him time. He'll fall back now into the clutches of It's Racing and Lurox, and so from being strictly in the favour of Contagious, it seems as though CB Racing have now both cars paying or taking advantage of the situation with Sir Tyson. If Sir Tyson doesn't make it easy for It's Racing, this could be one of the defining moments of the motor race. We'll see when Sir Tyson pits as well. That's of course going to be important. It's not this time by, we know that much. Goes past to start another lap. N-Spud also once again finding himself slipstreaming with the leaders. We've effectively got everyone on the same little stretch of track at the moment. Not many lacking a slipstream at the second. Lurox is also joining the battle in 5th. So Lurox has broken clear after the stops of RoboSport. Again, seemingly taking less, if any, fuel, and we'll see whether that means he can run to the end. Little Blacko in 6th spot. Again, a private island situation there for Little Blacko. 7 seconds the gap to 5th, and 6 seconds the gap to 7th place RoboSport. RoboSport with a similar situation, with that gap to Blacko ahead and some 25 seconds to N-Spud, currently running 8th in the midst of this lead battle. And unfortunately, the top 2 cars from CB Racing, I was wondering if maybe they had an opportunity to use the chance to break away, but they're just towing along the other cars at the moment. So we've got a 5-way train for the lead of this race on lap 108. And it is now Chris and Tyson moving through. Contagious to third. It's racing fourth and Lurox in fifth. Now Lurox, I'm wondering if the strategy here involves being in the slipstream, as the 22 currently is, and then putting the fuel mix down 1 or 2 to try and eke it out to the end. Would be a wise strategy if so, but we will see. Less than 40 laps left to run, and we're going 3 wide through turn 1. I think things might be starting to pick up and get serious here, as the racers are now battling for what will be their ultimate position, not just the position they run when they get into the pit stall. We aren't, of course, implementing anything like the stage racing rules in NASCAR, but when we run 2 stops, it is effectively a 3-stage event, much like we have in NASCAR. And this is the all-important 3rd stage then, hypothetically speaking. And look at this 5-car pain train as they head towards turn 1. It's Sir Tyson, who I believe still owes us a stop, holding the head of the order for the time being. It's a Honda 1-2 for the time being as well. It's number 2 from number 1, Sir Tyson from It's Racing. Then the pair of BC Racing Lexuses in 3rd and 4th, Contagious and CB Chris. Lurox in the 5th spot. And then a distant 6th at the moment for Little Blacko, but we won't take our eyes off this top 5 because there are sparks coming from the walls, there are sparks coming from the under trays of the cars, sparks hitting the pavement at the banked corners. Things are getting quite intense here among the top 5 as we go on to lap 111, lap number 111. Of course, the number 111, the former racing number of one Aaron Slight, the Aussie Superbike racer. Had a go at touring cars later in his career. To the outside of Tyson goes Lurox. 8th place N-Spud, still living dangerously, being very, very much involved in this top 5 battle as something of a tail gunner. Battle for 6th and 7th between Blacko and Robbo is still a little bit distant, but getting closer. We'll take a look back to that battle when we dare. Looks as though CB Racing Chris was put into the wall there, and he's lost time. He's dropped down to 5th. CB Racing Chris in the 19. Now running a few tenths off the back of the pack and actually behind the 8th place car of Spud. So just got hit into the barriers at an inopportune moment there on the exit of turn 1. It's Racing back into the lead then. Contagious and Lurox in 2nd and 3rd respectively. Contagious, the race leader now though, pulling out of the slipstream and into the lead of the race with less than 30 or just on 35 laps of racing left to run. The Honda with the pull though and the good run out of turn 1, so It's Racing back into the lead and has dragged Lurox through with him. So Tyson into 3rd. So CB Racing Chris and Contagious can now regroup together. Are we going to go 3 wide into turn 1, boys? Is this a good idea? What do we think? Well, we're about to find out. They go into the corner with Lurox at the head of the field, taking the outside line, taking the high line. Everyone through cleanly. Things are getting very intense here as we listen to these screaming motors go through and across the line to start lap 115. So Contagious 187 leading the race from It's Racing and Lurox, but it's an ever-changing picture here in the closing stages of the Blue Moon 500, the opening round of the Trackstars Touring Car Series for Group 2 spec machines. Restricted only to the newest specification of 2-litre 4-pot GT500 cars. Honda, Nissan, Lexus, the three manufacturers represented, and the three manufacturers in the top three for the moment, with the Lexus of Contagious heading the way. Will all of these drivers be able to run to the line? We've got different strategies. I'm fairly sure Sir Tyson owes us a pit stop, and Lurox may well also. We will of course see how all of this develops in the closing 30 laps. We're bearing down on 30 to go here. It's been good racing so far between Contagious, It's and Lurox at the head of the order. It's been very clean as well over the course of this 120 plus laps that we've registered so far, including the 8 that were run before the red flag. We have not seen a safety car or a significant smash into... We haven't seen the big one, is effectively what I'm saying. We've not seen the big one. And this is something of a super speedway. And in NASCAR circles, you don't have a race at a super speedway without the big one. We've got 30 laps to withstand here yet. Looks as though Sir Tyson is rather being dropped off the back here. So Sir Tyson, who I believe to be on older tyres than anyone else, starting to lose some pace. Having to contend with some traffic there. Another of the cars there having coming out of pit lane, I believe. That was Speedster. Speedster's still not up to pace. I think maybe something amiss with that car. Certainly something off, or the car going very slowly at least. And almost causing a problem there for Little Blacko in P6. But look at this, too wide again as they head into turn 1. And it's back to the 4 for both of the CB racing cars. Contagious 187 and CB Racing Chris back to the lead. So CB Racing Chris, who was in the barriers a few laps ago, just a brush mind you, but it cost him a bit of time. He's now back up to second place. Now what a pair of teammates would normally try and do is break away, but in a race this tight on a track like this, there is no room to break away. So when they do start to truly fight among themselves, they also have to consider everyone else around them. Evil Speedster saying he's lost power, and we've already seen that on the stream as well. Question is, will this race restart? He's dropped out of the race for the time being. I think that perhaps Evil may be retiring from this one. Contagious, Chris, It's and Lurox are top 4 here. I'll tell you one thing for 3, this is slightly more of a vocal workout than I've had in a little while, and my voice knows I haven't commentated on a race of this length for a little while. We're almost an hour and a half deep in this one. Lap 121 of 148 then. Contagious, Chris, Lurox, Sir Tyson and It's Racing, the top 5. Sir Tyson back up to 4th, and in this battle pack then, still got N-Spud courageously holding on to it. When you see that, someone like N-Spud a lap down, who's seemingly got the pace to keep up with this 5, you have to wonder what would have happened if he'd had a better race to this stage. Perhaps he could have been a factor in this battle for the win. Lurox again taking it to the CB cars. Can the one-man band better the two-car team? We will see. Will the trio of one-man bands work together on the cars from CB Racing? Lurox to the outside as they run through turn 1 then. Very close stuff, and that's Sir Tyson getting loose, and that was the big one we prophesized a few laps ago. The prophecy has been fulfilled. The oval racing trademark that is the big one. Now, is that enough to warrant a safety car? It would have done in an oval event in NASCAR, but whether or not this is decided to be a safety car here, I suppose we are going to find out. Sir Tyson has questioned whether or not it will be one. It seems as though everyone's continuing as normal for now. Contagious and Lurox have lost CB Racing Chris. Chris has now dropped to 3rd place and 2.5 seconds off the back of Contagious and Lurox. That could be significant because that's out of slipstream. It's Racing now declaring safety car. It's Racing, the host of the room and the series organizer as well, so he's the man that makes the call, and it is indeed a safety car. So the field is now commanded to slow down and go single file. So for now, pit lane is closed, but once the full field is closed up, and they will be now, pit lane will be open. So I think pit lane will be open this time. Robbo Sport has now closed up to the rest of the 9-car field that remains. So I think pit lane should be open this time. No one else has pitted except for Sir Tyson, who is in, and we did say that we thought Sir Tyson was yet to make a stop, so this could be a big moment in the race for the Send It Racing driver. The safety car that, of course, was caused by an issue for him has kind of served to help him as well. Other beneficiaries, Little Blacko and Robbo Sport, of course. And should he choose to take the wave by, and he already has, N-Spud P66 could also be a beneficiary here. He will be back on the lead lap. In the Lexus RCF. And we saw that he can keep up. So hopefully he can be another factor in the lead battle. It's all cooking up to be quite interesting here. And we are back to green flag action by the look of it at the head of the order. Indeed we are. So other than Sir Tyson, no one else in the field electing to make a pit stop. We now have 8 cars running on the lead lap, with Party Face as the only exception. So it is effectively now an 8-car dash over 21 laps to take victory here in the Blue Moon 500k, and it was the return to green flag controlled by Contagious 187, the 101 car in the lead from Lurox, who is in a CB Racing sandwich with Chris behind in 3rd place, running single file for now. It's Racing in fourth is 2.7 seconds off the lead. And that is certainly out of slipstream range, so he's going to need to buddy up with somebody. Problem is that Little Blacko is also some way off the back of It's Racing. The GTR in 5th place, Sir Tyson running 6th. Sir Tyson with the freshest tyres on circuit, of course, given he made the call to pit. Or finally served his second pit stop, I should say. The fact that Lurox didn't pit suggests that he has got the fuel. Evil Speedster there talking of his power issues in the game chat. Contagious 187 leading from Lurox and CB Racing Chris at the moment. It's Racing, funny enough, under pressure from Partyface in 9th, who's still a couple of laps off the lead. Party just has to be careful there of Little Blacko, who's on his outside line. Hopefully backs out of throttle and allow these three through now, and he does, by the looks of it. Now keep your eyes peeled on the red and white Honda NSX of Sir Tyson 02. I think Sir Tyson could be a hot ticket here if these three cars can reel in the top three. However, with a gap of 3.3 seconds to CB Racing Chris for It's Racing, it is a mighty ask to do that in 18 laps. Now, if Little Blacko and Sir Tyson don't fight and act in coalition with It's Racing, maybe there is a chance. I get a sneaking suspicion we'll know before too long whether or not that coalition has any legs. So those of you tuning in, thank you so much for doing so this evening for the Australian audience to the live coverage of the Trackstars Touring Car Series. If you haven't already given me a follow here on Twitch, it would be great if you could do so. As well as commentaries for a couple of different leagues appearing on this channel, I also do some driving myself for the benefit of the streams. And we do stream games other than Gran Turismo Sport as well. We've got a Project Cars League on our roster here on the channel, as well as my adventures into various forms of games with varying degrees of success. All racing games, of course. No fear of anything without wheels appearing here. But do give me a follow if you can, it helps a lot. 15 laps to go then in the Trackstars Touring Car Series season opener, the Blue Moon 500k, the one and only oval race of the season. And so far it has been somewhat controlled for most of it by CB Racing's Contagious 187 and CB Racing Chris. However, interlopers such as Lurox, who we currently see between the two of them, have made things less than easy, less than simple. And into the barriers there goes Contagious. That's allowed Lurox a run, that's allowed CB Chris a run, and that's the kind of slip-up that may also play into the hands of It's Racing, Little Blacko and Sir Tyson further back, but it does look as though they're simply not close enough to be factors, although they are closing in, courtesy of the poor run out of the corner for this top three. But 3 seconds in 14 laps is looking unlikely. Across the stripe to start 135, and it is the GTR ahead of the order. Lurox 22 taking advantage of that moment there out of turn 1 for Contagious and moving into the lead of the race. Now, you'd have to suggest, just based on the slipstream alone, he's not going to be able to be in the lead for the entirety of the 13 laps unless he does some masterful defensive driving. But certainly, Lurox is a problem in these streets if you are CB Racing affiliated. Almost 3 wide there through the final corner. How much longer will it be before Contagious and CB Racing Chris, their effective pact, when will that crumble and come to an end? For now, the CB Racing boys with the unwelcome sight of the Lurox Racing Nissan at the head of the order, as it was, of course, in qualification. In fact, we are running pretty much in the order that they qualified in, with the 2 CB cars directly behind Lurox. The Lexus out dragging the Nissan down the main straight, and Contagious back to the lead of the order. Perhaps not the most fortunate name in these trying times, Contagious 187, but he's getting the job done with what will be 10 to go after we go round this third corner. And looks like we're maybe going 3 wide, not quite. Lurox being defended against hard there. Racing is getting exceedingly close at the front of the order as we now have 10 to go here at Blue Moon Speedway. Contagious 187, Lurox 22, CB Racing Chris our top 3. Contagious there getting a bit of a hit from the back by the looks of it. Lurox and Contagious both ricocheting slightly off the barrier, but it doesn't seem to have cost them too much time. But hark, what do we see in the background? It's Racing, 1.3 seconds, 1.2 seconds off the back. He is now in the slipstream range of CB Racing Chris, and he's bringing friends, Little Blacko and Sir Tyson. Chaps, are you bringing the Doritos and the salsa dip? Are you going to be good welcome guests in this battle for the lead? We will find out in very, very, very short time, no doubt. Will the top 3 battle for the lead become the top 6 battle for the lead? Not if It's Racing continues going off there like he did. They're now 3 wide in the battle for 4th, 5th and 6th very briefly, but It's there getting into the barriers, and that's cost him a bit of a run. Now these guys are in danger of potentially dropping out of the slipstream, so they need to coexist well. CB Racing is also starting to drop back. So it looks like, for now at least, with 8 to go, it's between Lurox and Contagious. Will that still be the case in 1 lap, much less 8? We will, of course, see. Contagious has already drifted out wide a couple of times out of that first corner, which really is the main problem spot so far in the race. Turn 2 can be taken flat. Turn 3 probably can be taken just about flat. I had a little go before the race and I couldn't do it, but these guys are pros and I'm not. Contagious, Lurox, CB Racing Chris, our top 3. Lurox to the inside, dragging across the start-finish line. Hundredths of a second between them as they head into turn 1, and there goes Lurox 22. Contagious 187. In second place then. Now the 2 CB cars can get to work trying to challenge the blue, white and red Nissan, the factory Nissan colours that of course took Mark Scaife and Jim Richards to victory in an R32 GTR. Now the better part of 30 years ago, of course. And it is Lurox with a slight gap, and we now have Sir Tyson, Little Blacko and It's Racing all involved with 6 laps to go. It's a 6-way battle for the lead. RoboSport and N-Spud having their own battle further back in 7th and 8th. We'll see how that one concludes as well, but I fear that might be left to the post-race debrief, because a 6-way battle for the lead is where the cameras must stay for the closing portion of this motor race. It's Lurox 22 at the head of the order, taking the inside line seemingly wherever possible, although moving to the outside there for turn 3, and CB Racing Chris looking to the inside. Contagious 187 looking to the outside. Everyone just dicing and darting for track position here, trying to sight their entry into each corner. 5 to go here at Blue Moon then. It is Lurox usually at the head of the order, but of course some turns one of the other cars just can drift wide or drift ahead, and now with a slightly slow run through turn 1, it is the Team CB cars at the head of the order, the CB Racing cars headed by Contagious. Now our top 2, but that will undoubtedly change again within just a few hundred meters. Here comes Lurox again with a good run off the final turn. Bit of a gap back to Little Blacko, Sir Tyson, and It's Racing. But any one of these 6 drivers could find themselves crossing the line in the lead. Again into the barriers there for CB Racing Chris. We saw Contagious do that a few laps ago. And it is now Contagious with almost half a second over Lurox 22. Sir Tyson in the 3rd spot. The Marlboro-inspired Honda NSX up to 3rd again, with car with the freshest tyres, of course, after that late pit stop during the safety car period triggered by a spin for the NSX. Little Blacko, CB Racing Chris, and It's Racing now 4th, 5th, 6th, and that order ever changing, ever moving around on the board. Top 3 manufacturers at the moment. Lexus from Nissan from Honda, and then it's Nissan from Lexus, then it's then it's Lexus from Nissan from Honda again. It's rather pleasing patterns at the moment in the top 6, and it's now CB Racing who's caught up to the back of Tyson again. 3 to go, 146 of 148 on the ticker. 156 laps will be the total race distance. And I think all strategy, all alliances, all friendly games are now over. This is going to be a race to the line. And you'd have to suggest that maybe Little Blacko and It's Racing are too far back to be a factor, but not if there's more argy-bargy like that. We saw just a bit of door-to-door as we come out of turn 3 again. It is going to be Lurox with just a nose ahead. A little bit of a push there from Sir Tyson, who's trying for the slipstream in the bump draft as they head into turn 1. Will anyone make a dive into turn 1? No, Lurox continues to have the lead for the time being. Things getting very exciting here. Down onto the yellow stripe goes our leader Lurox. Sir Tyson in the slipstream in 2nd place. The pair of CB Racing Lexuses running 3rd and 4th. Contagious from CB Racing Chris. It's Racing now past Little Blacko and into 5th. Can he yet be a factor in the battle for the podium? It's Lurox, who has so often been at the head of the order, leading as we go on to the final lap from Sir Tyson 02, who's only been a factor in the latter half of the race. But it can be anybody's here as we run onto the final lap. It's Lurox rounding turn 1. Sparks flying from the back of the GTR. He's tapped the wall. Is that going to compromise his run into turn 2? It definitely has to an extent, but can Contagious 187 capitalise on this one as they go through turn 2? He's looked to the outside now. He didn't quite have a good enough run to pull that one off. We run into the final corner, and it's Lurox at the head of the order, but will that still be the case over the stripe? Will it be the pole sitter, the Nissan driver, in the lead when they cross the line, or will it be Contagious? He's got the run, but it's going to be a photo finish. Who's going to be at the lead as they cross the line? It's Lurox. Lurox by just over 100th of a second takes it from Contagious 187. CB Racing Chris in the 3rd position from Little Blacko. It's Racing and Sir Tyson, the top 6 covered by 6/10 of a second. Wonderful racing from that. In that closing moment, Contagious 187 had a great run out of the last corner, but it wasn't quite enough to take the win. Robbo Sport comes home 7th, just ahead of N-Spud P66. We see the full order here, and outside that top 8, it was, of course, only Party Face left among the finishers. What a brilliant last stage of the race that was. Any of the 6 drivers going into that last lap could have taken it. thank you for everyone who's joined us in what was a brilliant race, and congratulations there to our winner, Lurox 22. That was quite the motor race, and for Lurox, that was played to perfection. We had the coalition of CB Racing drivers working together throughout the race to fend off the likes of Luros and its racing, but at the end of the day, it was the solo team effort of the Lurox Racing Squad Nissan and Lurox 22 himself that took the win from pole, but it was anything but lights to flag. We should have maybe tried to keep tally of the number of lead changes, but I fear that would have driven me officially insane. But what a closing moment that was, with a brilliant run off the corner for Contagious 187. On the screen briefly he was registered in the lead as they went towards the flag, but it was judged just 1/100th of a second in favour of Lurox 22, and then Contagious in second place. The full results and more will be available on the VIPR Sim Racers Facebook page, and there will also be any further announcements, of course, posted on there in due course. Until then, I can tell you that the next race is in 7 days' time. It's the Dragon Trail 200 kilometre, hosted at Dragon Trail Seaside. An entirely different set of challenges as we visit our first road course of the season in the Trackstars Touring Car Series of 2020. But for the first of 10, we already have a great marker stick for all the other races to try and, I suppose, match up to. But that was a brilliant motor race. Let's show you the results in full one more time before we end the broadcast. It was Lurox 22, just 0.018, just under 200ths of a second clear of Contagious 187. CB Racing Chris, the other CB Racing Lexus, finishing up in third from Little Blacko in fourth. It's Racing rounding out the top five, the defending champion without too great of a start here, but only 6/10 off the lead when all was said and done. Sir Tyson in the second of the NSXs in sixth place, RoboSport in seventh from NSpud P66, and 2 laps off the lead, Partyface in ninth. Of course, we had some non-finishers as well. Viper Desites there was, or VIPR Desites, I should say, was in strife and ended up retiring from the race. We did have 11 starters from a scheduled 12, and 9 of them reaching the end of the race. But for this broadcast, I think we are pretty much all done here. What a performance from Lurox 22. What a performance from all of these drivers to have such clean racing at such high speeds at such close quarters. It's been great stuff. No doubt we'll be back here same time, same place, or not same place on the game at least, but on the same channel hopefully, for round 2 of the season at Dragon Trail. But until then, do follow me here on Twitch for more commentary on various different Sim Racing League streams and my own streams where I usually crash into stuff. But nonetheless, brilliant racing today. I hope you enjoyed this race as much as I did. The Blue Moon Bay 500 proving to be top caliber racing, even with the cars slightly fish out of water. Until the Dragon Trail Seaside, it's goodbye from the Trackstars Touring Car Series, and once again our congratulations to Lurox 22.